There comes a moment when you realize that you have been present in your own life, but you have not truly been living it. You wake up, you work, you answer messages, you fulfill responsibilities, you make plans, you talk to people, you move from one day to another, and yet, somewhere inside you, there is a strange feeling that you are watching your life rather than participating in it. You are there, but you are not fully there. You observe everything. You think about everything. You wait until circumstances become easier. 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 And slowly, life keeps moving. This is one of the most subtle forms of psychological suffering. Not dramatic suffering, not the kind everyone notices, a quieter kind. The suffering of a person who has slowly become a spectator of their own existence. They watch other people take risks. Other people fall in love. Other people build businesses. Other people travel. Other people create. Other people change. And somewhere inside, they think one day, I will do that too. But that day keeps moving further away. 1 month becomes 1 year. 1 year becomes 5. And eventually, Perhaps there is something you have wanted to do for a long time. A project, a relationship, a new career, a creative dream, a change in your environment, a different version of yourself. You think about it constantly, but thinking has replaced living. You analyze the possibilities. You imagine the outcomes. You worry about failure. You worry about what people will say. You worry that you are not ready. And because the mind can create an endless number of reasons to wait, you remain exactly where you are. This is why people remain in situations they secretly hate. They know what they are losing, but they do not know what they will gain. And uncertainty can be terrifying. Imagine standing at the edge of a forest. Behind you is a familiar road. You know every turn. You know where it leads. Ahead is a path you have never walked. You cannot see what waits beyond the trees. The ego says, stay here. The self quietly asks, what if the life you want is on the other side? This is the psychological conflict between safety and individuation. The self wants development. The ego wants control. The self wants authenticity. The ego wants predictability. And many people spend decades allowing the second voice to dominate. They become experts at thinking about life, but beginners at actually living it. They research everything. They prepare endlessly. They consume information. They watch other people succeed. They listen to motivational speeches. They read books. They create plans. But they never step into the arena. At some point, preparation becomes another form of avoidance. You tell yourself, I am getting ready, but deep inside, this is why some people remain permanently in potential. Potential is comfortable. Potential can always say, maybe tomorrow, but a real life requires decisions. It requires action. It requires mistakes. It requires embarrassment. It requires uncertainty. It requires participation. And participation means allowing yourself to be seen. That can be terrifying, because the moment you participate, you become vulnerable to judgment. Someone may criticize your work. Someone may reject you. Someone may laugh. Someone may misunderstand something else. You may fail publicly, because the moment you failure is not the opposite of participation. It is part of participation. You cannot live a meaningful life while demanding that every step be guaranteed. No human being receives that guarantee. The people you admire, the people who appear confident, the people who seem to know exactly what they are doing, they also experience uncertainty. The difference is not that they are fearless. They have simply learned that fear does not have to make the decision. This is one of the greatest shifts in consciousness. You do not wait until fear disappears. You learn to move while fear is present. You do not wait until you feel completely confident. You do not wait until you know exactly who you are. You participate, and discover yourself through experience. This is what individuation requires. You cannot think your way into becoming yourself. You must live. Every choice reveals something. Every failure teaches something. Every relationship mirrors something. Every difficult experience exposes another part of your personality. The self reveals itself through participation. Now you must stop asking. You must stand up. You must take one step. Not because you have solved yourself, but because life itself becomes part of the answer. You discover courage by doing something courageous. You discover confidence by taking responsibility. You discover your abilities by using them. You discover your purpose by participating in the world. The human psyche does not reveal its deepest potential while sitting safely on the sidelines. It reveals itself through engagement, through risk, through relationship, through creation, through failure, through love, through loss, through beginning again. Perhaps this is why you have been feeling restless. Perhaps the discomfort, perhaps it is telling you that you are ready to participate again. Something inside you may be tired of watching, tired of waiting, tired of imagining, tired of living in the future, because the future can become a beautiful place to hide. You tell yourself, when things change, then I will be happy. When I become successful, then I will live. When I find the right person, then I will open my heart. When I have enough money, then I will begin. But life does not work that way. You do not receive confidence before action. You receive confidence because you acted. You do not become ready and then begin living. But life does not work that way. You do not receive. This is why participation matters. Your life is not a rehearsal. There is no perfect moment waiting somewhere in the future. There is only this moment, and what you choose to do with it. Perhaps you have spent enough time watching your own life from a distance. Perhaps it is time to return, not as a perfect person, not as someone who has everything figured out, but as someone willing to participate, to speak, to create, to love, to risk, to fail, to begin again, because the life waiting for you cannot be lived by an observer. At some point, you must step into your own story, and perhaps that moment is now. So they make no choice at all. They remain suspended between possibilities. They think about changing their career, but never apply. They think about starting the relationship, but never speak honestly. They think about creating something, but never release it. They think about leaving, but remain. They think about beginning, but continue preparing. And because nothing dramatic happens, they convince themselves that they are safe. But there is a hidden cost to indecision. Every decision you refuse to make is still shaping your life. Choosing nothing is choosing the path of least resistance. Not to punish you, but to disturb the false peace created by avoidance. You may feel restless. You may feel bored. You may feel strangely disconnected from things that once mattered. You may even feel as though you have lost yourself. Perhaps you have not lost yourself. Perhaps you have simply stopped participating in the process of becoming yourself. There is a difference. The self is not a finished object waiting to be discovered. It is something that emerges through living. You discover yourself through decisions. You discover yourself through relationships. You discover yourself through relationships. You discover yourself through what you are willing to risk. This is why no amount of thinking can completely replace experience. You can think about swimming for years and still not know what it feels like to enter the water. You can read every book about love and still not understand what intimacy demands. You can study courage and still remain afraid. Eventually, you must enter the water. You must love. You must risk. You must act. This does not mean acting recklessly. Participation is not impulsiveness. It is conscious involvement. You can think carefully and then move. You can be afraid and still move. The important thing is that you stop using uncertainty as an excuse for permanent inactivity. Because there will never be a moment when you know everything. There will never be a moment when every variable is controlled. There will never be a guarantee that the person you love will stay. There will never be a guarantee that your project will succeed. There will never be a guarantee that the new path will be easier. Life does not offer guarantees. It offers possibilities, and possibility requires participation. Perhaps this is why some people feel jealous when they watch others living boldly. There will never be a guarantee that the new path. They may criticize that person, call them reckless, call them lucky, call them unrealistic. But sometimes, what looks like criticism is actually unconscious recognition. A part of you sees someone living a possibility you have denied yourself. The jealousy is not always about them. Sometimes it is about you. It is the unconscious saying, "You could do this too." This is why jealousy can become useful when examined honestly. Instead of asking, "Why am I jealous of them?" ask, "What part of their life is showing me something I secretly want?" Perhaps it is their freedom, their courage, their creativity, their independence, their willingness to be seen, their ability to live. And information becomes direction. This is what consciousness does. It transforms unconscious reactions into meaningful choices. The same is true of regret. Regret can destroy you or teach you. If you constantly replay the past, you remain psychologically trapped inside it. But if you ask what the regret reveals, it becomes guidance. Perhaps you regret not speaking, then speak now. Perhaps you regret not trying, then try now. Perhaps your history does not have to become your identity. It can become your teacher. Every missed opportunity can become a reminder to participate sooner. Every failed relationship can teach you what authenticity requires. Every painful ending can teach you not to postpone truth. Every mistake can become evidence that you survived being imperfect. And perhaps that is what you need to understand. You do not need to become fearless before you participate. You need to become willing to be imperfect, because perfectionism is often another form of avoidance. The perfectionist says, "If I cannot do it perfectly, I should not begin." But perfectionist says, "If I cannot do it perfectly, I should not begin." But perfectionist says, "If I cannot do it perfectly, I should not begin." But perfection is impossible. So the potential, their ideas remain inside their mind, their dreams remain theoretical, and years later, they wonder what might have happened. Do not build a life around what if. What if I fail? What if they reject me? What if it doesn't work? What if I regret it? There is another question. What if I never try? That question deserves equal attention, because people often fear the pain of failure, without considering the pain of permanent regret. Failure hurts, but regret can become a lifelong conversation with the person you might have been. The unconscious knows this. That is why unfinished experiences return repeatedly. The unconscious knows this. That is why unfinished experiences return repeatedly. The dream you abandoned, the conversation you never had, the person you never told the truth to. These things remain psychologically alive, not because the past wants to control you, but because some part of you still wants completion. Completion does not always mean getting what you wanted. Sometimes it means finally accepting that you must act differently now. You cannot return to the old moment, but you can stop repeating the same avoidance. This is participation. You begin where you are, with what you have, with the courage available today, not tomorrow's courage. Take the walk, write the first page, apply for the opportunity, tell the truth, set the boundary, leave the room, enter the room. Whatever your life has been asking you to do, begin. Not because you know exactly where it will lead, but because remaining permanently still is also a choice. And perhaps your life has been waiting for you to make it. There is a moment when participation becomes more important than certainty. You have thought enough. You have analyzed enough. You have imagined enough possible futures. Now, you must live, because life cannot be. You can analyze your personality and still remain unfamiliar with yourself until you place yourself in situations that reveal who you really are. This is why experience is psychologically sacred. It reveals what thought alone cannot. You may believe you are patient until life gives you something difficult to wait for. You may believe you are brave until fear asks you to act. You may believe you know what you want until you finally have the freedom to choose. Life tests the stories we tell ourselves, and sometimes the person you thought you were disappears when reality becomes demanding. That is not necessarily a tragedy. It may be a revelation. Perhaps you discover that you are stronger than you imagined. That is not necessary. Perhaps you discover that you have been living too cautiously. Perhaps you discover that the identity you built was based on what others expected rather than what you actually wanted. This is why participation is so important. It gives the unconscious material to work with. Without experience, you remain trapped inside possibilities. With experience, you begin becoming someone real. Consider how often people say, "I don't know what I want." They are simply afraid of what wanting it will require. They know they want to leave, but leaving means disappointing someone. They know they want to begin, but beginning means risking failure. They know they want to, but love means vulnerability. They know they want freedom, but freedom means responsibility. So they say, "I don't know." The mind creates uncertainty because uncertainty delays responsibility. This is why honesty with yourself is so important. Ask yourself, if I knew nobody would judge me, what would I choose? If failure were impossible, what would I attempt? If I stopped trying to make everyone comfortable, how would I live? If I knew I had only a few years left, what would suddenly become important? These questions can expose the life beneath the life you actually want, beneath the life you fear. Does not automatically mean the answer is wrong. Sometimes fear simply means the answer matters. The unconscious reacts strongly whenever the ego senses change. It creates doubt. It creates resistance. It creates endless reasons to wait. But consciousness does not require the absence of resistance. It requires the ability to observe resistance without obeying it. You can say, "I am afraid," and continue. You can say, "I might fail," and continue. You can say, "What will my family think? What will my friends say? What if people laugh? What if they think I am strange?" The persona becomes the director of life. You stop asking what feels true and start asking what looks acceptable. This is how a person can become successful and still feel like a stranger to themselves. They achieved the identity everyone admired, but lost the person who wanted to live. The unconscious eventually protests, sometimes through emptiness, sometimes through anxiety. It speaks through recurring dissatisfaction, the same feeling returning, the same dream, the same longing, the same question. What if I lived differently? If a question keeps returning, listen. Perhaps it is not meant to be silenced. Perhaps it is asking to become a decision. You do not need to change your entire life tomorrow. Participation begins with one honest action, one conversation, 1 hour spent creating, one application, one boundary, one walk towards something you have been avoiding. Small actions matter, because identity is built through repetition. The person who begins, the person who chooses, the person who participates. This is how confidence develops, not through endless positive thinking, but through evidence. You tell yourself, "I can trust myself." Then you keep a promise to yourself. You tell yourself, "I can handle rejection." Then you survive rejection. You tell yourself, "I can start again." Then you start again. The unconscious learns through experience, and slowly, self-trust replaces self-doubt. Plans will fail. Unexpected opportunities will appear. Relationships will evolve. You cannot control all of this, but you can participate in it consciously. You can meet reality instead of hiding from it. You can respond instead of merely reacting. You can choose instead of automatically repeating. That is what it means to become psychologically alive. Perhaps you have spent enough time observing, enough time analyzing, enough time waiting for it. This is why the next chapter of your life does not require a completely different person. It requires the person you already are to finally participate. You do not need to become fearless. You need to become willing. Willing to be seen, willing to be wrong, willing to fail, willing to learn, willing to change, willing to discover that your life may be much larger than the identity you have been protecting. And perhaps the most important question is no longer, who am I? Perhaps it is, what am I willing to do to find out? Because the answer will not be discovered by watching life from a distance. It will be discovered by stepping into it. There is a point when you realize that waiting for life to become easier is another way of refusing to live it. You keep telling yourself, when things settle down, when I have more time, when I have enough money, when I feel confident, when I know what I am doing, then I will begin. But life rarely becomes perfectly arranged. There will always be another responsibility, another uncertainty, another reason to postpone, and if you make perfect conditions a requirement for participation, you may spend your entire life waiting. The unconscious knows this. That is why the desire to change often appears before the circumstances are ready. Something inside you begins moving first. This is why you may feel restless before you know what you want. You may feel that something is ending before you understand what must begin. You may feel disconnected from your old identity before you have discovered the new one. This period can be uncomfortable. You may think you are lost, but perhaps you are simply between versions of yourself. The old identity no longer fits. The new identity has not yet become familiar. And in that space, you have a choice. You can return to what you know, or you can participate in becoming someone new. This is where courage becomes necessary, not the dramatic courage people admire. That then another, without knowing exactly where the road ends. There is something deeply human about this. Every meaningful life contains uncertainty. Every meaningful relationship contains vulnerability. Every meaningful creation contains the possibility of failure. You cannot remove risk from life without removing much of life itself. A person who refuses every possibility of pain eventually refuses many possibilities of joy. This is why protection can become a prison. You protect yourself from achievement. You protect yourself from uncertainty, and accidentally protect yourself from transformation. The goal is not to eliminate protection. It is to understand when protection has become unnecessary. There was a time when fear may have protected you, but perhaps that time is over. Perhaps the walls that once kept you safe now keep you trapped. This is why participation requires re-evaluating old defenses. Ask yourself, what am I still protecting myself from? Does this danger still exist? Or am I responding to the memory of something that happened long ago? The unconscious often reacts to the past as though it is happening now. A rejection from years ago can still control today's choices. A betrayal from one person can shape your expectations of everyone. A failure from childhood can become a lifelong fear of trying. But the conscious individual begins separating memory from reality. You can say that happened without saying it will happen again. You can say I failed without saying I am unworthy of love. This distinction creates freedom because once the past stops defining the future, you become available to new experience, and new experience is where life begins again. Perhaps that is what participating in your own life really means. It means allowing reality to surprise you. It means giving people a chance to show you who they are, instead of assuming you already know. It means allowing yourself to discover abilities you have never tested. It means entering rooms where you do not yet feel confident. It means creating something before you know whether anyone will appreciate it. It means loving without demanding certainty. It means living without requiring a guarantee. You may fail, of course. You may make mistakes. You will. You may choose incorrectly. Yet adults become terrified of falling. We expect ourselves to know how to live before we have actually lived. This expectation is impossible. You learn through movement. You learn through experience. You learn through consequences. You learn through trying again. And every time you survive a mistake, your relationship with yourself becomes stronger. You begin realizing, I can handle this. That sentence is more powerful than endless reassurance, because it is based on evidence. You have already experienced moments you once believed would destroy you, and yet that means something, Perhaps you are stronger than the identity you have been carrying. Perhaps you have been underestimating yourself because you keep measuring your strength by how little fear you feel. But strength is not the absence of fear. Strength is the ability to continue while fear is present. The person who participates in life is not necessarily the person who feels most confident. It is often the person who has decided that uncertainty will no longer make every decision. That is a choice you can make today. You can stop waiting for permission. You can stop waiting for perfect circumstances. You can stop waiting to become a completely different person. Begin with who you are. Begin imperfectly. Begin while you are still afraid. Because the moment you begin participating, your life begins giving you information. You discover what works. You discover what does not. You discover who supports you. You discover who drains you. You discover what matters. You discover what no longer matters. And gradually, the fog begins to lift. Not because you found all the answers, because you started moving. That is the secret many people never understand. Clarity is often the result of action, not the requirement for it. You do not always need to see the entire path. You only need enough light for the next step. Take that step, then another. Then if you were never waiting for your life to begin, your life was waiting for you to participate in it. There comes a moment when you stop asking life to give you permission to live. You stop waiting for the perfect opportunity. You stop waiting for everyone to understand. You stop waiting until you become fearless. You stop waiting for the version of yourself who has everything figured out. And you finally realize that version may never come. Perhaps the person you have been waiting to become is already becoming you through the choices you are making right now. Every time you speak honestly, you become more yourself. Every time you walk away from what destroys your peace, you become more yourself. Every time you allow yourself to be seen, you become more yourself. This is how a life is built, not through one extraordinary decision, but through hundreds of ordinary moments in which you choose participation over observation. You may have spent years watching other people take chances, watching other people become confident, and perhaps you quietly wondered, when will it be my turn? But life does not always announce when your turn has arrived. Sometimes you must decide that it is your turn. You must step forward before anyone tells you that you are ready. You must give yourself permission, not because you are certain, but because you are alive. There is something tragic about reaching the end of a life and realizing that fear made most of the important decisions. Fear chose the relationship. Fear chose the career. Fear chose the dreams you postponed. And all the while, you called it being realistic. Sometimes realism is wisdom, but sometimes being realistic is simply fear using sophisticated language. Fear chose it knows when you are staying because you are afraid. It knows when you are working only for approval. It knows when you are pretending to want something because everyone else expects it. It knows when you have outgrown a situation. It knows when you are avoiding the conversation. It knows when you are postponing the beginning. You may ignore that voice, but it does not disappear. The unconscious continues speaking through dissatisfaction, through dreams, through recurring thoughts, through the strange feeling that something is missing. Perhaps nothing is missing, but your mind lives in the past or the future. You replay old conversations, you imagine future outcomes, you analyze what people think, you worry about what might happen. And while your mind is constantly traveling, your actual life quietly passes. This is why presence is so important. To participate means to return. Return to this moment. Return to your body. Return to your choices. Return to the people in front of you. Return to the work you cannot live tomorrow today. You can only act now. And one conscious action can begin changing the direction of an entire life. Perhaps you need to make a decision. Make it. Perhaps you need to begin something. Begin. Perhaps you need to end something. End it honestly. Perhaps you need to tell someone the truth. Tell it with compassion. Perhaps you need to forgive yourself. Do it. Perhaps you need to rest. Rest without guilt. Perhaps you need to rest. Rest without guilt. Perhaps you need to rest. This is also participation, because being alive means allowing yourself to experience your own existence honestly. You do not have to perform strength every day. You do not have to be productive every moment. You do not have to turn your life into a constant achievement. Sometimes, living means sitting quietly and realizing that you are still here, still breathing, still capable of beginning again. That is enough. The unconscious does not demand perfection. It demands integration. It asks you to become aware of the parts of yourself you have rejected. Perhaps you rejected your sensitivity because someone called it weakness. Perhaps you rejected your anger because you believed good people never become angry. Perhaps you rejected your desire for freedom because you were afraid of disappointing people. But what you reject becomes part of the shadow, and the shadow waits. It waits until you are ready to reclaim what was lost. Your ambition can become purpose. Your anger can become boundaries. Your sensitivity can become intuition. Your solitude can become creativity. Your fear can become conscious. That is why participating in your own life also means participating in your own psychology. Do not simply ask what happens outside you. Ask what happens within you. Why does this person trigger you? Why does this opportunity frighten you? Why do you keep returning to the same pattern? Why do you need this person's approval? Why are you afraid of being alone? Why does success make you uncomfortable? Why does failure feel like an attack on your identity? These questions are not meant to punish you. They are meant to reveal you. And once something becomes conscious, it becomes possible to choose differently. That is freedom, not controlling everything. Having the ability to respond consciously to what happens. Life will still hurt you. People will still disappoint you. But you will no longer be absent from your own experience. You will be there. You will participate. You will feel. You will learn. You will respond. You will continue. That is a meaningful life, not a perfect life, a lived life. There is another thing you must accept. You will disappoint people. You will make choices that others do not understand. You will outgrow certain relationships. You will change your mind. You will become yourself, while remaining exactly who everyone else needs you to be. At some point you must separate your authentic self from the expectations surrounding you. It means becoming responsible for your own existence. Your parents may have expectations. Your friends may have opinions. Society may have standards. People may have plans for you. But ultimately, you must live your own life. No one else can experience the consequences of your choices for you. No one else can feel your regrets. No one else can live inside your mind. Therefore, no one else can completely decide what your life should become. This is why participation requires ownership. Your life belongs to you, not to the expectations you inherited, not to the identity you built for approval. This is why participation requires ownership. Your life belongs to you, not to the identity you built for approval, not to the identity you built for approval, not to the identity you built for approval, not to the mistakes you made years ago. You can choose again. Yesterday's identity does not have to control today's decisions. You can wake up and choose differently. You can become someone new without pretending the old person never existed. You can carry the lessons and leave the limitations. Perhaps this is the most beautiful part of becoming conscious. You realize that you are not finished. You are still becoming. There are parts of you that you have never met, abilities you have never created, experiences you have never lived. Your future contains versions of yourself that your present mind cannot yet imagine. Do not close the door on them simply because the current version of you is afraid. Your future contains... Step forward, slowly if necessary, but forward, because the purpose of life is not to eliminate uncertainty. It is to become capable of meeting uncertainty consciously. You do not need to know exactly where you are going. You need to stop refusing to move. One step creates another. One honest action creates another. One honest action creates another. And eventually, the person who once watched life from the sidelines finds themselves standing in the middle of it. living, creating, loving, failing, learning, beginning again, and perhaps one day you will look back at the person you used to be, the person who overthought, and you will feel compassion for them because they were afraid. They did not know what was waiting on the other side of participation. They did not know that confidence could be built. They did not know that failure could be survived. They did not know that rejection would not destroy them. They did not know that uncertainty could become freedom. But now, you know that life rewards participation, not perfection. You know that clarity often follows movement. You know that courage is built through action. You know that the future cannot be guaranteed. And you know that waiting forever is also a choice. So stop waiting. Now take the next honest step. You do not need to transform your entire life tonight. You only need to participate in it again. Look around you. This is your life. These are your days, these relationships, these opportunities, these challenges, these unanswered questions, this imperfect moment. You are here. Do not spend the rest of your life standing outside the door, watching yourself live. Open it. Walk through. Speak. Create. Love. Risk. Rest. Change. Begin. And when fear tells you to wait, listen to it, but do not automatically obey it. When doubt tells you that you are not ready, remember that readiness is often created through movement. When the past tells you, not a command, and when the future feels frightening, return to the next step. Only the next step. That is enough, because your life does not need you to know the entire path. It needs you to be present for the part of the path you are walking now. Perhaps this is what it means to participate in your own life again, to stop observing yourself from a distance, to stop waiting for another version of yourself to arrive, to stop asking permission to become who you already know you can be. You are not waiting for your life. Open the door that frightens you, and if you fall, get up. If you fail, learn. If you are rejected, continue. If you become lost, pause and listen. If you change, allow yourself to change. Because the goal was never to become someone who never struggles. The goal was to become someone who participates even when life is difficult. Someone who remains present. Someone who remains conscious. Someone who remains present. Come back to your creativity. Come back to the world. Come back to the present. Your life is still here, and it has been waiting for you. Not for the perfect you, not for the fearless you, not for the successful you, for you as you are. Begin now, and let the rest of your life become the answer to the question you have been carrying for so long. What happens when I finally decide to live?